So you've had an incredible real estate career, but I'm curious to go way, way back to the beginning at the start here and talk about kind of what led you into this business and what you were doing before and why real estate was the choice for you.
Great question. When I first got started in real estate, it was really a desire to change careers.
So you kind of remember what you did to get yourself going in the real estate business? Like, were you a fast starter? Were you a slow starter? Was it, tell me a little bit about that. So
definitely a fast starter. Nothing like strong motivation to get you going.
Yes.
And I had that, and I still do. There's a passion for it, but literally within 3 weeks of me getting my license, I had my first listing.
Wow. I would say this too. One of the things that if I were 15 years ago talking to someone about Peter Brower, I would say he might be the last person who will go on social media.
Yeah.
But you haven't. You've really kind of embraced that, right? And so tell me about that decision and how you've kind of gotten there.
Again, 2016, I started a Facebook group in Bedford called Talk Bedford. It's a beast now because we went from one member, we have 53,000 members there now.
Wow.
And now I don't do as much there as I used to.
We're excited this morning. We got a chance to chat with Peter Brower, who has been a veteran of the real estate industry in Halifax for well over 20 years at this point, has sold thousands of homes. Peter's responsible for leading one of the biggest condo conversions that we've seen in Atlantic Canada ever. He's done a great job building a geographic farm. Still a big part of his business comes from his sphere of influence or database. And so Peter's going to share all of the things that he's learned over the years in becoming one of the top agents in all of Atlantic Canada with you. So looking very much forward to having a great conversation about real estate with Peter here on our Rock, Roll and Real Estate podcast this morning. Peter, thanks for coming in, buddy. I appreciate it. And it's great to chat about real estate. We've known each other for, 20 years now, pretty close to that anyway. And this is the common thread between us, despite lots of other ways we've gotten to know each other. So thanks.
My pleasure. Excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've had an incredible real estate career, but I'm curious to go way, way back to the beginning at the start here and talk about kind of what led you into this business and what you were doing before and why real estate was the choice for you.
Great question. When I first got started in real estate, it was really a desire to change careers.
Yeah.
I was in the clothing business, worked very hard, 60, 70 hours a week, had a store down in historic properties that sold discount women's wear, touristy type of stuff, but I just couldn't make a living. And I wasn't passionate about it. Yep. So there was that moment 9 years in where I'm like, either I do this for life and make $20,000 a year, or change careers. And I actually had a lot of realtors as clients. And I saw how successful they were. And I kind of thought that I could probably do it. And then, I just decided to do both for a while. And then the choice was made for me because the developer down there didn't like me doing two things. And they kind of gave me an ultimatum. I think they were a little shocked that I chose real estate over the store, but that was a tough day, but it was a good day at the same time.
Yeah, and so real estate wasn't necessarily, I've been kind of hoping to get into this all the way along. I saw some people who were doing it, and it seemed like something that was tackleable for you. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah, it was interesting because really it was natural to me. I had a couple of options. I could have gone into car sales as well. I had an offer when it came to that. But it was interesting. Homes just really interested me. Everything about houses, but I didn't know anything about them. If I can be completely candid, like I couldn't have told you the difference between a split entry and a bungalow. I just couldn't. And I remember my first coaching conversation I had with one of the managers. I said that to them, and they're like, "Oh, we need to stop everything," right? Because it was like, I need to teach you some things, So there was a steep learning curve when it came to finding out about houses. There wasn't really a steep learning curve when it came to protecting folks and serving their best interests and the sales side of it, because I had that from the clothing store.
Right.
Keep in mind, I would sell about 5,000 t-shirts a year.
Yeah.
And I figured, wait a second, if I sell 50 homes a year, like, I'm really reducing my workload.
Yeah.
And didn't quite turn out that way, but it was a manageable number of people.
I love it. That's great. I love that. That's great. And so, you think back to your early part of your real estate career. Do you mind if I ask how old you were when you started in real
29.
estate? Okay, 29. Okay, so you're still a young guy. You're kind of, got some business experience there. But, what were the differences between the previous business experience and when you got into real estate? Like, what kind of immediately hit you in the face and said, oh, this is different than what I've been doing? Or maybe what were the similarities as well?
Well, I have to tell you, it was surprisingly easy.
Okay.
It was the first thing that I realized is that I didn't need to know anything about houses.
Yeah.
I needed to know about people, and I had that skill set, so it translated very naturally into homes. The reality was this: if people liked me and trusted me, they were going to work with me, and I could be myself. That was a big thought that I had initially, just because you see all of these, now you see them on TV, but you had these preconceived images of realtors. And at the end of the day, I was like, look, I am who I am. Yeah. This is who I'm going to project. And what you do is you find your niche, you find your people. So that was a surprise. I thought that maybe I would run into, I'm going to say, the challenge of, okay, if I can be candid, compromising my principles.
Right.
And of course you run into those moments. And I remember the very first moment that it happened, because I had an opportunity to either put a deal together and compromise my principles.
Interesting.
And I was like, I'm not putting this deal together. Yeah. I'm not compromising my principles. Yeah. Right. And guess what? That deal didn't come together. Yeah. But another deal came together with those folks. And then those clients were clients for life.
Yeah, and hundreds more have come together since. There were thousands, probably more since then. Yeah, exactly. So that's great. And so when you think back to that point in your career as well, do you kind of remember what you did to get yourself going in the real estate business? Like, were you a fast starter? Were you a slow starter? Was it, tell me a little bit about that. So
definitely a fast starter. Nothing like strong motivation to get you going.
Yes.
And I had that, and I still do. There's a passion for it. But literally within 3 weeks of me getting my license, I had my first listing.
Wow.
And it was quite simple. We had the home show.
Yes.
Back then, we didn't have computers everywhere. Yeah. So people would chat with you at the home show. Fair enough. And literally these folks walked by and they were from Allen Street, and they basically said, look, we're thinking of selling our house. Interesting. And I'm like, well, that's exactly what I do. Right. And that started it. And the reality was, I met with them. They knew that I was fresh off the boat, but they liked me and they trusted me. Great. And I remember I listed that house on Allen Street for $109,900. That was big money.
Absolutely.
And I remember other agents going, you're crazy. You'll never get that. Yeah. And we sold it for 107. Yeah. And then there was a house across the way on Connolly Street, and they had a little private for sale sign on it. I went and knocked on their door. It was that house. And I think I sold 32 homes that first year.
Amazing.
Yeah. That's so amazing. It was a hustle, right? Like the thing is, you got to do the work. Because I was doing open houses Friday nights, Saturday afternoons, Sunday afternoons, because I had no money. Yeah. But so when you have no money and you have lots of time, then you do the things that are time intensive. Yeah. And then you meet lots of people, and then hopefully you meet fits, and that's how you get great outcomes.
And early on, where did you spend time that, if you could go back and say, geez, that wasn't a great way to spend my time? What were those ways in which you could sort of identify things that you could have done a little differently that would have been more effective?
First year, I was very effective, if I can be fair about
it.
Awesome. I was using buyer's contracts back then when nobody else was.
Nobody else knew what they were.
Those first few years, I used my time as well as I could. Yeah. The moment that I could hire an assistant, I hired an assistant. But I worked too much. In fairness, I chased and chased and chased. And that's the difference between what I do now and what I did then. Then I chased, now I attract. Yes. Those are two very different things.
Interesting. And what was the most impactful way in which you chased? Let's talk about chased first. Was it, you talked about doing open houses on Friday nights and going on knocking on someone's door who had a private sale sign up. Maybe it's a combination of all of it, but were there any that you said, geez, I've found the right path for me here?
Yeah, so early on, I chased private sales hard.
Okay.
You know, and what I did slightly different was I took a picture of their house, and again, now this sounds very normal.
Yeah.
But that was also in a time when you only had one picture
That's
on a listing. And I remember, quick sidebar, going to the front desk and say, look, can I get any more pictures on? And they're like, they looked at me like I had 8 heads, right? And they're like, well, those would cost $1 per picture.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, and I'm like, what's the maximum? And they're like, 8. I'm like, well, here's $8. It's like really? I can, and I was the first guy to add more photos to listings. But so being innovative was a real thing. And I would say this: the key was consistent contact with the people I met, right? And that's always served me. Where I fell down was there's 2 places I fell down. One, I had too much of an ego, so there were some people who I walked away from that I probably shouldn't have walked away from. Maybe developers, builders, big time folks who are like, you know what, like we don't have the right relationship from was a little bit, if I can be fair, a bit of a master-slave relationship that I'm not really into. I'm a bit more of a partnership guy. So I guess I lost a little bit of my time doing some of those things. And where other than that, from a wasting perspective, time, I really didn't do a whole lot of that.
That's great, yeah. And you talked about sort of making the shift from chase to attract. When did you start that in your mind?
So there was a moment. So one of the things I did poorly early was I didn't have a great, what we'd now call a lifetime referral system.
Okay.
I stayed in touch with people, but they got a Christmas card and they got a pewter or an ornament. They got a pumpkin at around Halloween. Like I did some cool things, but now like I stay in touch with my clients 30 times a year. Right. So that's a tract. Right. It's because I try to make myself really valuable in their lives. I don't try to be imposing in their lives, but I share real estate stories, I share life stories. If I can deliver an unexpected item into their life, then I try to do that. That's the difference. When you're chasing, you're hunting. When you're farming, which is really what I do, you become more attractive to people. And they can pre-interview me. Like literally, if you pop onto YouTube, put in Peter Brower, you're going to see 200 videos at this point. You know what? Look at them all, and you're going to have a good sense. If you pop onto Google, you see 65 5-star reviews. Like that's the point, is now people pre-interview me before I meet them, and they've generally already made up their mind before I even walk into their doors.
And in pursuit of the attraction, you talked about maybe touching your clients or interacting with your clients 30 times a year. That seems daunting for a lot of people. Can you maybe break down a little bit about what that looks like?
So it's super simple. Like, and you're like, because I had that same like 30 people. There's one year I did it 59 times, and even I had I had to go easy there, Kyle. Just pull off because they don't love me that much. So a couple of things. We do Home by Design, which is a magazine, 4 times a year. Okay, super easy. You do the ad copy, inside front cover, inside back cover. That gets fired. It's a high quality touch. Then we do quarterly stats that Royal Page offers. That's 4 touches there. And then we do 12 market updates. So every month I do a video email that I send out to them. So we're already at 20. So then we try to do 4 individual touches on top of that. When I say individual touches, call, text, email. And it's just a, hey, Peter, just checking in. How are you? And then we do what we call deliver the unexpected. Like we do because I'm not an events guy. I'm a more of a one-on-one person. So like, for instance, we just gave out 4 tickets to the ice show that was just here.
Cool, yeah.
So I just reach out to our clients and say, hey, look, we've got a few extra tickets. I'm going to do a little draw, and you'll probably get 30 clients come back to you. But that's a really high quality touch. You're giving them something. The people who are going to those things are having a good experience. It's on brand for me. So we do probably 6 to 8 of those. So that actually gets us to 32 when we do that. And that's all you need.
That's amazing.
But it's not hard when you break it down. Like, would you not expect to hear from your realtor maybe once or twice a year? Would that be fair for them from an actual, 100%. Hey, how's your house now?
Yeah.
Hey, you're still liking it?
Yeah.
Hey, is there anything you need? Do you need some help with like a painting contract or whatever? Like that's not hard. And the other stuff is even easier.
Yeah.
Because you're not even doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
It's happening in the background.
But what it takes is a little discipline.
What I liked about it is that you didn't once say the word ask. You just said, we give,
Oh, that's
give,
it.
right?
I live in a whole giving world. I try to give everything away now.
Yeah.
Like it's brutal because you just try to give everything away, but more comes your way.
Yeah.
So it's a really good. Now that's completely taken from Richard Robbins. Right?
Yeah.
Giving
Totally.
starts the receiving process. I have realtors across Canada reach out to me, especially on some of the things that I'm good at.
Yeah.
And I always give it away. Why would I not?
Yeah.
You know?
Totally. Well, there's a couple of things that I do want to talk about that I know you have given away to other realtors too. But just before we get there, I know that you've done a couple of interesting things in your career. You did the only condo conversion that I know of in Halifax. And so tell me a little bit about that experience, the ups and downs of that maybe too. So.
Absolutely. So that was Granbury Place, and it's the largest condo building in Nova Scotia. It's a 200-unit building.
Yep.
When I walked in, I was the fourth realtor in.
Okay.
And they were great guys, but they were clueless.
Okay.
And I remember going in and just saying, guys, if I take this on, it's going to be a little different from what you're currently experiencing. It's going to be a partnership. It's not going to be a top-down relationship. And it was a referral to me from a lawyer friend who was like, look, I think you're the right fit.
Cool.
And basically, we had just immediately changed the narrative, and that was the thing, because the building had what they perceived were weaknesses. And I was like, these aren't weaknesses.
Yeah.
They're just features.
Yeah.
And they just need to be explained in a different way. But what I was able to do there was, because when you have a large condo building like that, and you have 112 units that are absolutely identical.
Yeah.
What we did is we were able to create a story for each one of them.
Interesting.
So each one of them, when we did the conversion, we created a slightly different renovation.
Okay.
Different colors, different schemes, different cabinets, different countertops, and so each one of them, when people were buying them, they became something that they fell in love with.
Yeah.
I sold 169 units in that time frame. I wouldn't do a thing different. The only thing that I did on the front end is I explained something to them, because I'd had this experience with a couple of developers. Remember how I said earlier that not every developer is for me, and I'm not for every developer?
Yep.
I had said, look, I've had this experience before where I've turned something around.
Yep.
We're going to do this for 2 years.
Yep.
And at the end of 2 years, this thing is going to run really well.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be tempted to fire me.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a cheaper option for you.
Yeah.
That's going to be the critical moment in our relationship.
Yeah.
And if you do that, your next 6 months are going to be fine. But then you're going to fall right back off your path. And I remember the moment, because I remember being in a condo on literally late December with both guys. And I said, just 2 years in, and we were chugging. We probably sold 70 units, at that time. And keep in mind, they had sold one previously.
Right.
So that was it was a love affair, And I said, do you want to make any changes? And I remember him looking at it, and he goes, no, let's just keep on going. And I was just like, fantastic, this guy gets it, And then we rode that thing all to the end. And quite frankly, I still am in touch with him. He's not here anymore because there's so many challenges for developers here.
Right.
He's just found another spot that's a little bit more suitable for him. But I still serve his entire family.
I love it. That's amazing. Yeah. And genius to come up with the story for each different unit. I learned something from you every time I talk to you. That's one I didn't know that you had done. And so, how did you land on that?
So if you pop into that building now, every condo is different.
Yeah.
So, and they're all the same.
Yeah.
But they're all different. It just literally, because what I recognized was that they had a really good construction crew. Yeah. And they had a really good guy. Okay. So it just ended up being I can customize all of these. Awesome. So let's get 6 different kinds of granite. Yep. Let's get 6 different kinds of floors, and let's get 6 different types of cabinetry. Well, you do 6 times 6 times 6. Yep. I don't know. You get a number over 108.
Absolutely.
Right? And that combination, with them all being different, and the buyer being able to pick their own choices, and us then delivering that product on time. Yeah. You start building a reputation pretty fast. That's awesome. We were able to turn that around. That's awesome. But I had a willing partner. Yeah. Because I had another opportunity right towards the end of it, where they're like, sell these, and I'm like, they're not at all what I want to represent. So it has to be a partnership.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
great.
you know, that's how that one
That's
works.
cool. And then I know you have also gone and done sort of low-rise, you know, new construction work as well. And, you know, maybe you walk me through your experience with that and what that's brought to your business and what you learned from that, you know, maybe is, you know, again, positive or negative.
Yeah. So when I started the business, I looked at how am I going to have longevity in this business, and the reality is this: there's really four different categories. First-time buyers, move-up buyers, and then executive buyers and sellers, and then there's new construction. So I basically said, okay, so those are price points.
Yep.
Lower end, middle end, top end. So I could try to serve all of those, or I can pick one or two.
Yep.
And at the beginning, I picked sort of the bottom end and the middle end because I was a young guy, you know, and I just didn't have the confidence at the time, which was wrong on my part, to go into the super expensive houses. That was the age doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then I looked at construction, and I really enjoyed construction.
Okay.
And I met a builder through a developer, and we started working together. The problem was the build quality at the end wasn't on brand with who I am. Right. So when your clients are only 50% satisfied, that's not great for your longevity. Yep. So I had to work on finding a builder that was the right fit for me. So we did a lot of that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the problem with that is you become very much an employee-employer relationship. And again, that's not really great for the way that my partnerships work with folks. Yep. So don't get me wrong, we developed Beachville, for instance.
Yep.
We did a couple of subdivisions, one subdivision in Dartmouth on Morris Lake Estates. Yeah. And we did a lot of White Hills. Yeah. So there were a lot of things that I did, and in fairness, that was because those were Armco subdivisions, and those guys offered me a job, and I was like, look, I don't think I want to do that because I like my independence. Yeah. And then the one day it was over. Yeah. And I know exactly the moment that was, and this tells you the story because I had gone to my guys and said, look, I've got this deal here for you, but it means that we're going to have to build it at a certain time frame, and we're going to have to put them in a place, and they're like, we're not doing that. And I said, okay, well, look, I'm going to have to sell them something else. Yeah. So I sold them a competitor's product. Okay. And then I walked in, and it's like, you're gone. Yeah. And I'm like, thank you very much, because I was an independent contractor. Yep. I didn't have there was not a paycheck every Friday, and that wasn't the relationship. Yep. And I can live with that. Yeah. And then my last contractor was a small contractor. Yeah. I promised to make him a millionaire. Yeah. I made him a millionaire. Absolutely. And he's on to big and good things, but there was a day there that I decided it wasn't the right fit for me anymore. Yeah. So I don't do it anymore. Yeah. Because there's a level of intensity that I'm not prepared to give into that relationship if it isn't a partnership. That said, is if I had a willing partner, of course I'd do it again. But it has to be a partnership at this stage of my career.
Cool. I would say that I've been around you for 20 years. There was a moment sort of at the end of that Granbury project where I would describe, and this might be, and I don't mean this to be kind of a negative way of saying it, but it almost felt like a reinvention of your career. Can you just describe what that was that you kind of went through there and how you approached that? Because I think it's been masterful, and it's something that I think took a lot of intestinal fortitude to do, let's say. So
thank you. It's so at the end of Granbury Place, because that took a chunk of time. I loved doing it. When it was over, it was over. I probably got depressed, if I'm being fair about it. And what had happened was I was a really good realtor. Yeah. And I kind of thought that people should come to me because I was a really good realtor. Yeah. And at the end of the day, nobody cares that you're a really good realtor. Yeah. There was another developer who I had lunch with one day, and he said, you're the best realtor that nobody knows. Yeah. And that really struck me because I had become very introverted. And so bottom line is, I was even contemplating at some point saying, look, I may need to exit this business. Yeah. And basically that was when I said, look, I need some help. Yeah. And that was when I started getting professional coaching.
Yeah.
And that's when I changed my branding.
Yep.
And that's the moment truly where I started becoming a brand where people come to me because they're attracted to me,
Yep.
versus me hunting things down. Yep. So, and it's much more who I am.
Yep.
So what's crazy about it is it took me 13, 14, 15, probably 15 years to figure that out. Like, think about how brutal that is, because it's such a lonely business. Without a coach, without a guide, you're always vulnerable.
Yeah.
So, since that point, I've always had a coach.
Interesting.
Because they keep me accountable, and it helps continue to chart the way forward.
And tell me now, because those who are astute enough to know and look at your business from, I think, an outside analysis perspective, they would say you are fantastic at the attraction, not only within your database, which I know and it's harder to see, but just from, I think geographic farming is what you now do masterfully, better than anyone I've seen across kind of the country, and so. You've really developed that to the point now where you're presenting on that across to audiences around North America here a little bit. And so tell me a little bit about your geographic farming efforts. And I specifically am curious about, I know that you've had moments where you shifted the actual geography and then back. And so tell me about some of those challenges, how you made those decisions.
When I left that last builder in 2016, remember how I talk about revenue streams?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, this revenue stream is gone.
Yeah.
I need to find a new revenue stream.
Yeah.
So I looked at farming, and I had moved into Bedford.
Yeah.
And what I had found was that I was in love with Bedford. Mm-hmm. And it was on brand with who I am. I volunteered there. My kids played for the Eagles. They swam for what did they swim for? The Beavers.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I should know that one inside out. But bottom line is we're there all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, wait a second here. I'm going to change what I'm going to do, and I'm going to embrace the fact that this is a love affair.
Yeah.
And I'm going to share that story with folks from Bedford, how much I love Bedford.
Yeah.
And we started doing farm materials at that time. What I did, again, so it was interesting because I didn't want to make the 15-year mistake of doing it all alone and banging my head against the wall. I was in coaching by then, and there was a guy in Montreal doing a really good job on coaching.
Okay.
And he was in what we call a master's group that I was in.
Yeah.
And he taught me everything.
Interesting.
He taught me everything he knew.
Love it.
And I stole everything that he knew, and I applied it, and we do things that are slightly different from what everybody else does.
Yeah.
We target personalities.
Yeah.
We have a certain level of frequency. We really custom create our content to appeal to the folks to different people. And then, of course, we do it multi-layered. So we try to do things in the community so that people recognize who I am. So that worked really well. And I obviously continue to do that. Of course, I've got two partners. I've got Bill and I've got Dave.
Yep.
And we're now doing that in the neighborhoods that they're passionate about as well. So, and it takes a little while to build that, but once you've built that, what it does is it just really is another really good revenue stream. In my world, we look at repeat clients and we look at referrals from those repeat clients. Those are your number one and number two sources of clients that you ever will have. So once you do that really well, that's when you can add a revenue stream. And this would be one of the revenue streams. Now, what's interesting is that ancillary to that, because I have the connections with Richard Robbins and other folks, I have about 450 agents across Canada that I send all my materials out to, so that they don't have to have the learning curve. They can just say, I like this one. I don't like that one. Like literally, we just ran one this week. I won't be too specific, but the bottom line is we just had an election. So we just ran an election postcard.
Love it.
Because it's very, it's very on the nose. Yeah. It's what people are thinking about. And that's what's interesting to people. You don't want to, this is the reality when it comes to farming. It's like everything else. It's what you give to it.
Yeah.
If you put in something that's a black and white 8.5 by 11 that they've received 15 times before, that's going to go into the garbage, right? But if it's a 6 by 12, full color, two-sided, maybe with some information as to what's happening in the neighborhood or some things that they might be worried about, look, it's still going to go to the garbage. But it's going to take a little longer, and then they're going to recognize the branding. And sometimes I walk into homes and they have the stacks of them. They
Interesting.
literally save every single
That's
one of
wild.
them.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine, but it is
When
great.
you walk
So
into those homes, you literally don't have to do a presentation.
not worried that you're getting the listing or not, right? So yeah. I would say this too. One of the things that if I were 15 years ago talking to someone about Peter Brower, I would say he might be the last person who will go on social media. But you haven't. You've really kind of embraced that, right? And so tell me about that decision and how you've kind of gotten there.
Again, 2016, I started a Facebook group in Bedford called Talk Bedford. It's a beast now because we went from one member to we have 53,000 members there now.
Wow.
And now I don't do as much there as I used to. But social media, like at the end of the day, it's relatively easy to manage. You know, it's like it's not hard. But what I do, or what I started doing that was different from other folks at the time, and please, any realtor listening to this, please do video. It's not hard, and everybody already knows what you look like, so don't worry about it. Right? Like I know what I look like, right? Like it's like, and if they're looking at me, they're going to look at you. You know, and so incorporating video into our presentations, into social media, and people just love consuming. Consuming videos. So we incorporate that into everything that we do, Facebook and Instagram. And in fairness, we get a lot. Like we cornered that market, especially if I'm meeting a seller. And if we're talking about Facebook and Instagram and the impressions that we make, I would say this: the algorithm really likes me. Which is nice. The other thing to do is Google reviews. You know, make sure, because people are checking you out there. Ask for a 5-star review. You know, and you can never get enough of those anyway.
Just to be clear for people who don't know Bedford too, there are 53,000 members of a Talk Bedford group. There might not be 53,000 people in Bedford, right?
It's because now they're all in Hamilton Plains and they're in Sackville. Because what actually happens is during traumatic events, like we've had the fires and we've had the floods. So basically, because we don't have traditional news media anymore that is able to report on time, people are flocking to a site like this. So basically what happens is at those times we just see spikes of requests to come and join us because literally the locals are reporting what's happening there in real time.
And I mean, we could probably talk for an hour about just that.
Exactly, and I don't. But what's interesting, I've never advertised there. I've never done anything that's self-interest in there. It's all given to the community.
Interesting.
And something might come back from it.
Totally.
Who cares?
Totally.
You know, just give.
Love that. Okay, the last thing I really want to spend some time on with you, if that's okay, is that you talked about Bill and Dave and some of the other assistants that you've had over the years. Maybe just talk to me about your thoughts around how your team has evolved and how you've kind of grown just people around you that way.
Perfect. No, it's a great question. So the first thing that I did really well was hire an assistant early, and it just made sense to me. Doing the things that I don't want to do, handing them off to somebody who loves doing them, that was a big realization. How could anybody love admin? There are people who wake up in the morning and they dream about admin.
I agree.
And so I made that change initially. I was literally a one admin person for a long time. I happen to probably have the very best admin in North America. And she's still with me. She's 80 years old, but she handles all of my finances and our rentals.
Amazing.
At an incredibly high level. So she's retired, but she'll never
She's an amazing
retire.
lady. I know her really well.
She's amazing. So she's still unofficially part of the team. But basically what happened was there was a moment where I decided that I recognized that specializing has value. So if you're a generalist, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're starting off in the business, absolutely, I get that. But the more that you specialize, the more valuable you become to the people that you're with. So I really started sectoring off, I'm going to say marketing, and then photography and video, and then bringing on a buyer specialist. And that allowed me to focus on the things that I really enjoy doing as well. And also at this point, because of the 28 years of doing it, adding to their lives so that their lives became better as part of it. And then now, of course, I've got Bill as well. And I've got a summer student who does basically kind of, I squeeze all of the marketing into 4 months, and he has to produce 12 months worth of marketing in 4 months that I can just plug and play. So, but the key to it, really, really good people that we like, and they're accountable to me, and I'm accountable to them. You know, and and it's fun.
Yep.
You know, that's the thing but there's a combination of structure
Yep.
and freedom there.
Yep.
So we meet every Monday morning.
Yep.
You know, we have one-on-ones every Wednesday. We have a strategy meeting once a month. And then of course we have a WhatsApp group. And this just really allows us to create a really close-knit group.
Awesome.
That works together. But we're also like the key from my perspective is how do I make their lives better?
Yeah.
Right. And it's not, and that's the difference. Again, once I started getting a coaching side of it, if you can make other people's lives better, that's when you get the best outcomes.
Yeah, listen, I appreciate it, and I appreciate your thoughts on everything. It's always a pleasure to chat, and it's a blessing because you're such a giver that we benefit from it. Just like listening to your story and listening to the things that you've thought about that maybe I think a lot of people haven't. So always appreciate your time.
You know what? I'm not everything to everybody. I know that. I'm an acquired taste to some people.
Come on now.
But I'm happy to help anytime I can.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Peter. Really appreciate it.
Okay, pal.
Absolutely.
Take care.
You bet. Thanks.
Okay.